Slowing my jog to a stroll and then stopping altogether, I bent over, my hands on my knees, catching my breath, a drop of sweat rolling down my forehead. Storm Area 51. I remember in details the first time those words came up to my ears, as I was half listening, and I produced a smirk. For the most part, I was completely isolated from news, what was going down in the rest of the world, whether it regarded politics, religion, celebrities, etc. But sometimes, some things were so viral that they managed to even reach me. And as this was something of personal importance, I tried to learn more. Still, I laughed at the absurdity of it. The main goal throughout my whole life was just that, to penetrate the gates, and I had concocted hundreds, if not thousands, of plans, most of which were discarded fairly soon in the planning process, because the obstacles were many. Only a few dozen actually could count, only 5 or less major problems that would have stopped me less than 10 minutes in, and no more than 3 times I had actually made a real attempt, which always ended very poorly. Learning that people with no knowledge of the base, of the many secrets it holds, of basically anything, agreed to just show up and enter was the source of my amusement. Fools, the lot of them. However, with the passing of time, an idea started lodging into my mind, an idea that could have been just crazy enough to work. The news spread like wildfire, and soon the number of participants was insane. Of course, they were all from my generation, as the elders frowned in disappointment, their uttered warnings drowned in excited tactics whispered back and forth. Maybe they were right. After all, they had been here for longer than us. Maybe they knew better. But more likely, the Charlies had just gone too used to the way things were and were fine with never obtaining the truth, the ultimate freedom. I looked around me, spun 360 degrees, and all I could see was nothing but desert. So much for all the ones who were on board with the plan, who agreed that strength was in number. Early that morning, only a small handful came with me, half of which retreated in fear, and the others... Let's just say I had been lucky up to that moment. The sun was beating down on me, making me feel like my brain was frying inside my head, incessantly beaming, blinding, scorching. Spending my life indoors, I was not able to withstand this climate, and didn't know for how much longer I would have been able to keep walking. Just then, as if to add to my misery, while I was taking a deep breath, a sudden gust of wind coated my sweaty skin and the inside of my mouth and throat with a fine layer of sand. I flew in a fit of cough, spitting on the ground, trying to be as silent as possible. Just because I saw nothing, it didn't mean there was nothing. That was something I had learned quickly. Area 51 is not a place where they keep things lightly or leave anything to chance. I had already been standing still for too long, so I forced my aching legs to keep walking, trying to ignore the heat. I might have been on my own, but there were still people coming, and that was what made today different, a diversion. Even though normally civilians were allowed to walk up to the gates, seeing the gravity of the potential threat, a perimeter of 20 to 30 miles from the gates had been set to further make sure there would have been no breaches, but it was still the best distraction I could ever hope for. I had always been unsuccessful because hundreds of guards and military can easily spot one individual, But what happens when a good bunch of them is preoccupied with numerous groups spread a bit everywhere, trying to get closer and closer? That significantly raised my chances, the proof being I had made it farther than I ever had before without getting detected. But alas, I would not have reached the objective for several more miles, if my calculations were correct. I had no way at that point of knowing precisely how much I walked already, with all the improvised detours I had to take every time I noticed activity, trying to head to another access point. I didn't even really know where I was now, but I would just keep following the road until I found myself at the gates, or dying in the process, whether by the soldiers' hands or by the searing heat. I couldn't stand one more defeat. I would not have let them take me back to a cell one more time. I would have not adhered to their stop. I would have kept on running, and if that meant dying, then so be it. All my life I dreamt of what I would have found on the other side. How would it be? Was it like I was imagining it? Would it have completely surprised me? Whatever was waiting, I was excited, and once more that feeling overtook fear, but that didn't last long. A noise broke my daydreaming. It was just static, but it was enough. Panicking, I looked around. No constructions, of course, no bushes. The only thing I saw was a large rock. I sprinted to it and did the best to crouch behind it, though I felt painfully visible. I waited, and just when I was about to leave my hiding place, I heard a vehicle approaching. I closed my eyes, sure that this was the end of it. My heart seemingly stopped beating, but my ears picked up the most beautiful noise ever. The engine wasn't slowing down, and in mere seconds the vehicle had passed, directed to the gates, no doubt. With a sigh of relief, I still remained there for a couple more minutes, just in case that they weren't alone, and then I rose back up and went down on the road. Whatever device emitted the static noise was clearly not a camera, or they would have been alerted to my presence. I actually had no way of knowing where the cameras were placed, and once again thanked my luck for getting so far. I kept running, wiping the sweat away from my face with what had become autopilot gestures I was no longer aware of, and only allowing myself micro breaks when I absolutely needed them, inhaling the air deeper than ever before in my life, entire blocks of it filling up my body. How long had it been since I was on the road? How long since the vehicle passed me? I had no idea. The sun had moved, but was still far up in the sky, cruelly beaming its light down on me, relentlessly. Just like I had no idea for how long I had been running and walking intermittently, I was equally clueless to how long it'd take, but at one point I finally did see it. The gates. My brain was screaming to hide, take cover, check out all around me, but a mix of euphoria and exhaustion left me falling on my knees, the palms of my hands burning on the hot asphalt, while I took in the simple wooden bar painted yellow and red, the metallic fence covered in warning signs, and the guard's shack. I did it. Well, I had almost done it. I didn't see anyone in front of me. Probably everyone was back at the perimeter, where all the tourists were trying to breach in, and if I managed to close those final 200 meters, I would officially be on the other side. As I was getting up, I suddenly felt something cold and hard pressing against my back, and all my happiness washed over me, as if a bucket of icy water had been poured on me. "How the hell did you get here?" sputtered the soldier holding the rifle behind me. I knew his question was rhetorical, and I was trying to swallow down all the frustration and pain, unable to produce a word. "What's your name?" "Victor," I murmured, feeling my mouth drier than when it was coated in sand. I had full intentions of not stopping if caught, but I never thought I would already be still when that happened. What now? Pathetically try to run for less than a meter before getting shot? Nobody was even there to see. No one would have known they did that. And most likely, instead of the rifle, he would have pulled out the taser, and I would have still ended up in the same cell. How could I have been so stupid? It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and I lowered my guard when I was so close. "Victor, what?" yelled the guard, slightly kicking me with the tip of his boot. "Victor Oscar Sierra." The rifle still pressed against my back, I heard him talking into his radio. I caught one. "No, basically at the gates. I have no idea how he did it." "Victor Oscar Sierra." "Copy." We stayed in silence for a couple of minutes, me still on my knees, the rifle still in place. Then a jeep approached, and I was basically tossed onto the back seat before it went into reverse. I watched the gates getting further and further, while the jeep was driving me back towards the main building of Area 51, where all of us have been confined since 1947.